Hello and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I'm Phil Baki and I'm joined by no one because I'm in the future and we just got done recording an interview with Junior Gonzalez. It's a great interview. You should listen to it because it's coming up. And for whatever reason, our StreamYard platform didn't capture the first 2 minutes of the interview. So the part where I normally do the intro and we talk about stuff, and Junior talked a little bit about El Paso food and the fact that he is actually still friends with Mark Lowry, and they talked about the fact that Mark recommended him to be the manager following his departure in 2021. That was all talked about, and unfortunately, I don't have it for whatever reason. But the rest of the interview we do have in high fidelity and with video as well. So enjoy as I let you join midstream to the interview with El Paso Locomotive FC head coach Junior Gonzalez. Please enjoy.
Progressed in his career from coming to this club, and so yeah, it's kind of cool, right? I chose to go to Chicago Fire as an assistant coach with the first team, but I always kept my eyes on the club, and also had known Hutch from Seattle Sounders, my time there. So it's interesting that I had a connection with many of the coaches that were here. I was an assistant coach. Well, my second coach at Chivas USA, Wilmer got the job there, so I was his assistant there, and also worked. I took over Rio Grande Valley after he went to the first team. So there's the connections with a lot of the El Paso coaches and the team. I always watch the results and watch the highlights when I couldn't watch games. So I had a really good conversation at the time. I believe it was with Alan and Andrew, and I was really close to coming to visit and um, really considering the job back then. So it's interesting how the football world comes full circle, and you end up somewhere where you have been tracking, and because you always think of the woulda couldas, you try not to look back too much on decisions, but um, yeah. So and I'm here.
Well, and with that, how did it all come about? Like with coming back around, maybe can you tell us from your perspective, like how the off season played out and how the interest came back around from El Paso?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know internally. I know there was some top candidates that they were looking at. I My contract was up at LAFC. I felt that it was time for me to go into an environment where I can coach men and not necessarily an extension of the academy. So the whole overall goal was to get my family back into the LA market and move back into our home there that we had rented out and get the kids situated after Chicago Fire. And then I was able, and I was happy that they chose me to be the second team head coach. But the idea was getting back into an MLS first team environment as an assistant, or possibly getting a head job at a top USL team. That was kind of my goals. And I'm really happy that you know the head coaching experience at this level, I believe, is I've already been an assistant coach at multiple MLS teams. This is the one position that I haven't had in my career, and I felt it would be a good learning experience for me. A result-oriented league that have top players.
With
So,
Oh, go ahead,
uh,
Nico.
yeah, just with you coming here, was it because obviously you just spoke about how you've had kind of contact with the club over the years and you've kept tabs on Locomotive's progress. Did someone reach out to you first and say, "Junior, we're thinking of you for this position. Please apply," or like
Yeah,
walk
they
us through
called
that?
LAFC prior to my contract discussions with the club and asked for permission to speak. Mm, I believe that was Ray that called, and then I did a few interviews. This is prior to Mike being official, so Andrew was still in the picture, and then when Andrew made his move and Mike came in, I was still in the interview process, so I was able to come on a in-person interview. I know they interviewed a few different candidates. I came into market, met with Mike and Ray, discussed the club. They showed me the facilities, showed me the surrounding areas. We went over the roster, That was a big piece of it, was the caliber of players that were here. And that was when, they offered me the position, and then I had to make a decision within 48 hours if I was going to come or um, I had other opportunities, but not as concrete to stay in the MLS, but all of them were going to mean that I would have to travel out of the LA market. So my family stayed home. Kids are in high school. Little one's 7 years old. Um, and my wife is working there, and we have a good support system there. So either way, I would have had to leave, and so I decided to come to El Paso. I believed in the ownership group. I believed in, I've obviously known the club for a long time. And when I saw the training facility and I discussed the project, it was a position that I was excited about and thought it could be a good fit for the players that are here and the style that I teach.
How would you, in terms of talking about that style, it, obviously fans are getting used to it in terms of, like, we're now seeing it, in front of our eyes. But if you were describing your style to somebody, how would you describe it? And is there anyone maybe in world football that you could say is like a close, maybe, comparison for how you like to play for someone who's trying to understand your style?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many amazing managers that you kind of take bits and pieces out of what you see and how that fits into the group that you have. It's a very much so possession progression based style, where we're trying to play through lines and progress up the field. Mm, Not necessarily overplaying, but creating solutions to unbalanced teams, and whether it's within a direct form or um, really just very simplistic way is creating numerical advantages to outnumber opponents and break lines to eventually get into a position to be direct to goal. Um, there is a lot of possession based and rondos and a lot of intermediate and short passes to create 2v1s and create relationships with the players. I think you're seeing that as the season's evolving, that we're able to circulate the ball really well, move the ball well. The final piece to how we're teaching is being a little bit more lethal in the final phase and having more direct runs in behind and not always looking for the short combination play, but finding a little bit more of a direct path to goal, whether that's off the edge from the wide areas. We've really been focusing on creating a little bit more combination play from the central areas, and the team is and the style is evolving. And I really look at our personnel. Who do we have, and can they execute how we want to approach the game? And I've evolved even from my previous teams to make sure that we're trying to get the best out of the individuals we have and still stay true to the style and the principles that we teach. Um, I believe from where I'm at in an honest analysis, we need to be better in our final phase for the amount of chances created. We need to be finishing more, and we need to do a better job of defending the space behind our team and definitely our box defending. Dealing with direct teams, dealing with teams that like to put a lot of crosses in the box has been a focal point for us. If we want to play our style, we have to be pretty compact and be able to win the ball back quickly so that we don't get countered and get exposed in those situations. World football, there's so many different coaches that um, that I like to watch, and I wouldn't say that we're a carbon copy of Pep or Arteta or, I watched a lot of Deserby when he was in the Prem as well and his style of play. But I also watch a lot of, even MLS coaches, and I'm looking at, Colorado's team this year. Vancouver has a very unique team. There's a lot of different teams, LAFC, I was under Steve Cherundolo. So I've taken a lot of my ideas from coaches that I work with. I had a really good mentor, Aguero Real, that was at Chivas USA, my first pro team, where I had to translate all his sessions from Spanish to the English speaking players. And I think I retained more in the year and a half, 2 years than I have in any UEFA course I've taken or USSF courses or working. Ziggy Schmidt taught me a lot about the game, working with him. Um, there's a ton. I'm leaving out a lot, Ezra Hendrickson that I work closely with. But I do study a lot of the teams in the MLS and in our domestic league, and also, European football. I watch a lot of Liga MX. I watch a lot of South American football. I was a scout for LA Galaxy for South America for almost, I think it was about 8 months in between the head job and the second team job. So I got to know a lot about their styles and talking to ex coaches that were turned into scouts for the clubs. So I think I've been a bit of a sponge, and like, what do I like from these aspects, and how can we integrate that into our team? Um, Stylistically, I feel that when we have 11 players on the field, which is definitely a focal point for us, that we have had spurts where we've dominated play against some pretty good teams.
Talking about I mean, stylistically and talking about how things have gone till now, you were talking about uh being better defensively. I think when you were announced, it was a conversation of like adding some defensive solidity and using that as a foundation to play your style and all of that. Obviously, you know, like you said, some challenging situations in games.
Yeah.
Things have been after a quite like blistering start to the season and maybe getting out of the gates quicker than probably many would have expected. It's been a little tougher more recently. What are your thoughts on how you bring about that uh, basically being able to defend that space and behind? And when you talk about the personnel, those selections, is it availability that more so drives the shape of the team that you're picking? Or are you picking the shape for the opponent and placing the available players into that shape?
Yeah, well, the way we're teaching the game, that the shape isn't necessarily the biggest priority. It's how do we play within either shape that we've been playing? And the shape morphs into different structures as you progress up the field. Um, most recently we've been hovering between a 3-4-3 and a 4-3-3. And this was something that I said from the onset, that we're going to be the two formations. Obviously, the 3-4-3 turns into a five-back system when you're into a lower block, which then in turn gives you more players to protect the goal. Um, but also the personnel we're playing in certain positions are also hovering into the midfield. We've been playing Mendez in a wide area that is also an interior player, which allows your wing backs to kind of travel and give you the width. So um, I've been liking the three center backs because when the wing backs go higher, we've been able to build in a 3-2 or 3-1 formation with our interiors. And that's been giving us a lot of players in between lines higher up the field. And as you've seen throughout the season, when we can penetrate those lines and find our players between the lines going at back lines, we are the most dangerous. Um, the line has had to be a little bit higher up the field because we've been high pressing at times, which the cues of when to drop and reading those moments are, but still new to me and to the philosophy. Has been something that we've been working on quite a bit. And I think no matter what shape you play, whether you're playing four in the back, five in the back, three in the back, those cues are really important to read. Do we have oftentimes a moment to win the ball in a counter press, or do we need to now retreat and limit the space in behind? And that is through giving players solution based activities and training where they can now start communicating and working together in those actions. And as you know, this game can hurt you within seconds and also help you, and the momentum will shift depending on those actions. So that has been our focal point is, okay, we've got a good start. We do play a good brand of football. How do now we tighten these things up so that we can make sure that our home field is a fortress, that we're winning games at home. We've had a good road experience, but we need to make sure that we're playing the best within our home field. And there's been unfortunate, weird scenarios. I've never been in a season where, and we're looking internally with discipline, with the caliber of the defending. It'll be easy to point fingers at the referees. That's not what I'm here to do. I mean, it's up to someone else to evaluate them, but it is what it is. And we got to focus on how can we stay disciplined enough to get in a good run where we're not dealing with the adversity we've dealt with so many red cards, because that has hurt us. I do believe if we would have been even numbers and many of the games, Tulsa, Oakland, we would have had different results. The way the game were actually transpiring, even with the Tulsa game early, we were dominating until we got that red card situation. And at times with 10 men, we've actually dominated possession against teams. It's just, you get, fatigued and worn out when you're chasing the ball like we have been. But I'm confident the guys are getting the concepts. We're discussing it. They're every day in our reflection videos. They're chiming in on what they think, and I think the collaborative approach to how this is evolving I've been enjoying it, because and no one wants to be in part of a group where it's just one person saying it's this way and not taking other opinions and views. We have a lot of experienced players that played at a very high level, so I would be crazy not to listen to the players as well, as they're the ones implementing on the field.
How different is that aspect of coaching and managing a first team as opposed to maybe in your previous roles, either, obviously assistant coach probably maybe more close to that, but in your previous head coaching roles, doing more teaching, and you're teaching young players like the game and these concepts
Yeah.
versus incorporating like the opinions of your experienced players and how you interact with them.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, Phil, I never changed. I always ask the young players how they feel in the system and how they're feeling within what we're teaching as well. I mean, the reality is, the age doesn't mean as much as the cerebral capacity and the individual's understanding of the game. With the older players, what I was really happy with was the buy-in. Initially, we took some lumps in preseason, and I think there was some guys who were kind of um, cold feet a little bit, trying to get to know me. And as the preseason evolved, I think the turning point was our New Mexico game at home, where everything just started to click. And then from there, moving forward, the guys believed we were having success. It always helps to get a couple of results within the system. Um, so I don't know if I'm approaching it much different, to be honest with you. What I do love is that I don't have to plan a session or prepare for a game with one team, and then the head coach for the first team says, "Hey, you're starting 5 of my guys tomorrow." Or plan a session, and all of a sudden for training they take 2 to 3 guys, and you have to still implement the same idea with less numbers. So I believe me being in that environment for so long has enabled me to adapt more than coaches that have been in first team environments where there's no player movement. And it's forced me to manage more individuals, because in those settings, you have maybe 45 players that are going in and out of your 25-man roster. Where here, I get to see the same guys every day, and we get to train, and my relationship with them is a daily relationship versus sometimes the starters you only get for match day minus 1 or 2. And then you have to somehow have a good relationship with them um, within the first team environment, where you're not overstepping your lines with the first team staff. That's why those jobs are so important, to have a good relationship with the head coach. And my relationship with Steve Turner, though, was excellent there at LAFC. I've had good relationships with most of the head coaches. In this environment, it's been great. I mean, I'm able to have our U20 team has some top talent. So even when we've had some injuries, those guys are being plugged in, and it's a seamless integration, which I see even some of the players that from the Locomotive U20 set up in the academy that have gone to college are now back from summer and being integrated. And I'm like very impressed with the local El Paso player. So I'm like, it's to be, I'm like I'm waiting to wake up from the dream that I'm having because it's very amazing to have a core group every day. And I do believe that's why we're progressing the way we are is because the amount of teaching, the teaching will never end with me and my style. I mean, I know some managers going like, Ancelotti at Real Madrid, he had to manage those players, right? But there was still teaching going on from the assistants and having done my UEFA course with his son and him talking about the Champions League final. There was a lot of things about that environment that were still very teaching based, but you're dealing with top players in the world. So really you just have to structure them and let them fly a little bit. And what those environments was managing the individual. I knew that here I'm going to have to get to know the players on a personal basis and have more one-on-one conversations with them and take their opinions into consideration more than maybe a U17 academy kid that's getting a call up for his first game in a second team environment. So those first team environments where I've been assistants in first teams, I took a lot in on what I would and wouldn't do from a player management standpoint. And look, I'm not perfect. There's still conflicts. There's still going to be disagreements, but how we're managing them internally is I'm seeing the team grow in that respect. And that's a nice feeling.
Junior, you talked a little bit before about how you were, I think you said for about 8 months you were a scout for, was it LAFC or LA Galaxy?
That was LA Galaxy. Yeah.
LA
Yeah. That was
Galaxy.
after my time with the first team, LA Galaxy, when Ziggy was the head coach. They released Ziggy. They brought in Scalotto
Mm.
and they kept me on my contract and put me into a scouting role. So I was going to the Cohen Bowl, U20, U17, Sudamericanas. I was going to different countries and watching players that were on our list and then reporting to the club. But what that did for me, I knew that wasn't that I have a passion for watching games, but I knew that wasn't my passion. I wanted to coach. But what that did is created a network of people at those big events that were scouting but had been coaches in the past, which I still have relationships with. So it's been nice because from a player acquisition standpoint, I was here a little bit late to help with too many positions to structure a roster, but the network that I have from that standpoint, from all my scouting, has been really good for possibilities for bringing in players in the future.
So you sort of answered my question because I think you might be aware that in the past, Locomotive have um, made their head coach also the technical director, and it's really only recently that those two jobs have been split up and kind of, the structure of the club is more reflective of what you'd see in Europe, even in MLS, where the technical director really is their own kind of thing. How do you find working with Ray Sari, and how important is or how much do you enjoy talent identification yourself? I'm hearing you say you much prefer to coach, but what is your involvement in recruitment, or do you really give Ray kind of like, this is what I need, I trust you to go find it?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm still creating a relationship with Ray. I just got here, right? So I'm just what our relationship is communicating on a daily basis. As far as putting a roster together and any type of acquisitions, Ray, Mike, and myself meet once a week, and
Mm.
we go over any possible players that are available. We discuss the performance of our current players, and when if it comes in time where we have to now start adding to the roster, who knows what could happen in football, right? Carl could have a bang up World Cup, and all of a sudden, he's off to the Prem, and we're going to need another defensive midfielder. So like you always have to have a shadow team, is what I call it, um, where you have a group of players that you think can fit your system, that fit the style. And Ray's also learning how I teach and the type of player that would fit our team, and we discussed it. And so far it's been good. It's been a good the communication between the technical director, the president, and the head coach has to be ongoing. And there's going to be, I believe, not a difference of opinions that you have to work out, and I think that's healthy. And there's going to be a lot of communication on where they see I see the team. At the end of the day, I have to coach the team. I have to prepare the lineups. I am making those decisions from the player identification and the talent identification. Ray has been in this league and has a network of people from the USL. So I'm learning a lot about the USL and the processes through Ray. Because the reality is, even when I was in the USL in the past, I was still part of MLS teams. So we're able to learn off each other. I'm learning more about the front office from Mike. And this is why I feel this position is going to be and is a position that will allow me to have more experience in a leadership role where who knows where it could lead in the future. Um, and what is transpiring here is not happening in the MLS environment.
Speaking a little bit more about recruitment, we would be remiss not to talk about the blockbuster signing of Cristo Fernandez. I
Yeah.
think some outlets have reported that you had personally met with Cristo some months back, maybe even longer than that, and it sounded like you had, from conversations with him, you were convinced by him as someone who could add to this team, and you wanted to give him the chance to live his dream as a professional footballer. I'm curious what, first of all, how accurate that is, that
Yeah.
reporting, and then what convinced you about him? How much do you expect him to contribute? And finally, I mean, what do you say to those folks who are saying, this is a publicity stunt, he's not a
Uh,
real footballer, this, that, and the third? Kind of thoughts on all of that.
yeah. As far as what I say to the people that are calling it a publicity stunt, it's the same thing I say to the people that are commenting on us not keeping 10 men on the field or 11 men on the field or having something to say about our performances. I don't say anything because I don't pay attention to it. To be honest with you, I focus on the bubble that we have as a group. If I focus on too much on that, I would be driving myself crazy. I'm confident in who we are as Locomotive, our identity as a team, and who I am as a coach. Um, so the way to shut those naysayers up is to continue progressing and winning games and be at the end of the season where our overall goals are. And then at that point, we can stay quiet because we've proven it on the field, you know? As far as Cristo's concerned, I met him in LA in SoFi through a mutual friend that we got to know each other watching international games. And he also had connection with LAFC. So he started to come watch training. I did talk to him about his journey and his desire to come back into the professional football and actually kind of sideline to acting and really try to make football a reality again from when he had his foundation within the professional game. He was in an environment, I was in an environment where I couldn't give him that opportunity with LAFC too. You know, he's in his 30s and that's not the mold and the structure for the second teams. It's maybe the oldest player is 23 and you're bringing in a lot of younger players and trying to get the low end of the first team roster with quality talent and entry level salaries to help the first team win games. So that was not an environment where he could get an opportunity. Um, he did go to Chicago Fire second team to give it a go, which he was in the same environment that reality he would have been in at LAFC if I would have let him train with us. And so when he reached out, I said, "Look, I have no problem you coming and training and giving your best effort, and then from there we'll evaluate your game and see where you fit in with the team." Um, what I will say is, from a locker room standpoint and from a human being, he's one of the guys that is one of the most genuine guys that loves the game and can teach a lot of things to some of the players in the locker room that may have more experience than him from a football standpoint. And so much about this game is a confidence and about having a cohesive group that all get along. I've haven't been around many teams that um, will get to a hotel, eat, and circle around and play cards for another hour and a half and joke around and going out together. And this has been a a breath of fresh air from some of the environments I've been in, how well these guys get along. Obviously, there's going to be conflict in any family, right? But from a soccer standpoint, just last intra squad, so we've had two blocks of training, which has been it hasn't been really easy because we haven't trained much. I mean, we've been playing Wednesday, Saturday for so long with the cup games that we really haven't had time to have full blocks. So we have two blocks. Our last intra squad, he scored a nice goal. He almost got an assist for a goal. It was a really competitive game, 3-2. Split up the teams evenly and got after it. That's a sign that he can compete against the players in house and actually score goals. Um, and I believe he's getting his fitness level back to where he needs to be. So it's going to be a process for sure to get him to the level where Rubio's at, right, or BTO that haven't had a break in their professional careers. But yeah, I see him as a winger. We see him as a center forward. We see him as someone that's dangerous in the box, and he has a really good timing on how to get in behind defenders without the ball, which is something that Armando likes to do both. Gabi still can do both, but a lot of our players like the ball at their feet and in between lines. So getting unbalancing players and different type of player that can do those things. I think Jimmy was, before he got injured, was starting to get, I think, a little bit into his rhythm with those type of runs. So he's in our environment, and now it's up to him to prove that he can get on an 18-man roster and continue proving that he's going to be goal dangerous for us when he starts competing. Like any player, there's no promises. We evaluate a day-to-day training, but we have put him in a position where he's now able and will be eligible to compete. Which I believe after the signing, and I do believe, Mika, that he's using those naysayers and all the publicity that's negative towards this move as motivation. He's a very determined individual. I don't think he would have gotten where he did in his active career and in his football career if he wasn't. Um, so I see that a little bit initially on the announcement. I can see that affecting him a little bit. I'm sure, like anyone. But trust me, I got some texts from GMs, coaches, myself, right? And I've sent some pretty sarcastic remarks back, like just out of joking. But I'm comfortable with the signing. I don't think there would be any player here with the Locomotive that if I didn't feel my heart could contribute, we wouldn't sign him.
Another big kind of development in this season, perhaps maybe not as entertainment based as Krista's announcement, but just within USL Championship, of course, the Players Association and the league are finally in agreement on a new collective bargaining agreement. I think they're just
Yeah.
waiting to ratify if it hasn't been done yet. Were those negotiations and really those public facing kind of protests by the players a distraction at all for you and your staff? How do you feel about the fact that the players and the league have now come to an agreement, and just your thoughts overall on that kind of labor process?
Yeah, no, I asked the guys. We have a leadership group that we go to lunch, and I take them to West Texas Chop House, and we have a lunch together. And I ask them about what's going on. I asked them um, an honest question in the last meeting we had, and where do we stand in the big picture with how we take care of you guys?
Mm,
And I don't feel from the responses I got from them was that we're not one of the teams that they're worried about. They're worried about the teams that are maybe not giving the proper resources to from other clubs. And I respect any time that players come together for a common goal to make a better environment. It was by no means a distraction. I mean,
mm,
really, I support our players, and if that's something that they want to do, then we have to, again, without the fans and without the players, then what are we doing here, right? So they need to be happy, the players, and need to be in a place where they feel comfortable that they can provide for their families. A lot of these players have kids, they started families, they need to be taken care of, benefits, all the things. I was really happy to hear that our players are in a good place within our club, that we're one of the best clubs in the USL and how we treat our players. And that makes me really happy that that feedback came to me, because again, when you're in a position where you're going to take a job, you're not really. I did talk to some of the players, that I coached in the past, but you really don't have time to discuss all those details, right? I did see where the housing was. I did find out about the benefits situation for the players, and I did get to see the facility. I mean, it's very rare to have two grass fields at your disposal. Yeah, we don't have the biggest facility, but it is functional, and we're able to create culture there. And another thing I really like is, like, the guys make the best out of what we have, and they don't see our environment as hindering them from succeeding. And that's all you need in a club, right? So yeah, we'll see where it goes. I'm hoping that, you're dealing with ownership too, right? And you're dealing with the side of the game that I rarely deal with, and the players union. So I'm learning a lot too. I've been able to, talk to Mike about it, talk to Ray, talk to, Calvillo and some of the guys that have been around for a while. Um, and you would hope that the USL will one day be in a level playing field with the contracts that, obviously not the DP contracts, but even from the entry level contracts at MLS. And I believe it's stemming that way. The more exposure we get, the more fans we get. That's why it's so important for the fans out there to come support us, so we can sell out and hopefully have our own stadium one day, soccer specific. All those things, the more fans that come to the games will then in turn help the players in the future.
I mean, speaking of exposure, there is no bigger event in world football than the one coming up this summer, the FIFA World Cup.
Yeah.
Tell us how it feels to have one of your active players in Carlos Sante getting called up for his country. I mean, Carl's going to be defending Neymar and Ashraf Hakimi and Vinicius
Yeah.
potentially. Are there how was that received? Obviously, we saw the scenes on Instagram when he got called up, and that was amazing. But just tell us how you feel about that as a coach, and are there any other players or colleagues that you're looking forward to seeing in action this summer that you've coached or been around?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to age myself, so I'm not going to talk about how many other players that I've coached that are being the World Cup. Quite a few. But this one's really hits home, right? Because it's Carl, and I've gotten a relationship with him here, and I, my family's Puerto Rican, so he's close by with Haiti, so that's like
Yeah.
incredible, the size of the country, and that the fact that they're in the World Cup for me is like the story in itself, and then to have a player that's on the team and being a part of that, the announcement, he was so nervous. I mean, I'll tell you, he was tightly wound the day before. He wanted to miss training because he didn't want to miss the announcement. I said, "No, you're training. We got the time right." And what I really liked was that we all went in the locker room and experienced it with him. Um, but what that means for him, what that means for his family. I was talking to the media today. They came to the facility, and I was just saying, like, all of us as young footballers always watched. Mine was '86 World Cup, so I got just aged myself. But watching the '86 World Cup in Mexico and Maradona in Argentina, there's always a point where you go out and train afterwards, and you say, "I'm going to be playing a World Cup," And there's such a small percentage that are able to actually accomplish that dream and goal, and Carl's one of them, and I'm so proud of him, so happy that he's getting this opportunity, and yeah, we'll be watching. I mean, they got, and there. I always root for the underdog, because oftentimes I've been on teams that we've been the underdogs because we've always been younger. So you never know what could happen in a cup. We'll see how he performs.
Yeah, they've got quite a group, the five-time world champions, the
Yeah,
two-time AFCON champions,
yeah,
Scotland, who are also,
yeah,
making their return. So goodness, it's gonna be such an experience for him. I bet he'll have plenty of stories for y'all when he comes back.
yeah. I'm hoping that they score early and they score a goal and then get some confidence, and you know how the football is, right? You get one result in a tournament like that, there's always a surprise African team, South American team. There's always a surprise team. So we hope for the best for Haiti and for Carl, and
Yeah.
we'll be watching. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I was on the youth world national team. They had a camp for the U17s, U18s, and U20s all together for a month and a half in Southern California. So we, as the youth national teams, went to most of the games at the Rose Bowl, and we played scrimmage games. So that was pretty unique. It was like a 3-week camp and then 1 week off and another 2-week camp. So now as an adult, I'm a little bummed out because it's a little pricey to get to see the games, and then we only have 1 week. So I'm gonna try to catch the USA game in SoFi when we're home for our mental health break. But
Nice.
crossing my fingers, I don't have my tickets yet. Yeah.
Well, now tell us what is your projection for how the U.S. men's national team is going to do?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough conversation because of the results that they've had. But I do believe that if the guys can be peaking at the right time, I believe the first game is the most important. And if they can get into a rhythm and find themselves getting a result, then like I said, the momentum will start to build, and it could be something very special. I do believe that there's going to be a different type of motivation for them that they have never experienced. Some of them having, well, none of them, right? They're playing in the U.S. in a World Cup. I'm hoping that the team comes together and that they start to believe in each other and to have a performances that they are proud of at the end of the day, right? I mean, there's so much media behind it and Pochettino and all the things. And if you start believing all the hype, and I know the ex-national team players, a lot of them that are now talking about the heydays and when I was there and this, that, and the other. Well, the reality is the tournament hasn't started. And I'm optimistic. I'm hoping that they do well.
Nice.
It's a yeah, it's going to be very interesting too, given the expanded format and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
it feels like the chances for surprises are a little bit expanded as well, given that more third place teams are going to go through and all of that stuff into the knockouts.
Yeah, I think the first game for me is an important one, right? Because there's so much pressure on the guys as well. It's in our own country, and the football fan has evolved, compared to back when, I was watching us play Colombia in the Rose Bowl. There's a lot of people have opinions, right? There's a lot of people out there in the media. There's a lot of people that have something to say, right? So how does that affect the group? How do they stay mentally focused on the internal team and believe in what obviously coach is leading them to how to play? Yeah, I'm a U.S. soccer guy. I also am been so much exposure to Mexico that I'm kind of a tweener there, right? I'm grown up in the LA market where many of the players that I coach either played for the Mexican national team, like Kenneth, that's now there in a tournament, and also the U.S. So I hope for the best for CONCACAF.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big showcase for them for sure for that
Yeah,
our federation. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
So with the we talk about up till now, we talked about kind of results. We talked about there is a bit of a it's a bit of a weird season given that there are these kind of big breaks. You
yeah,
guys are in the midst of one right now. You're looking ahead to restarting after this long break with a cup game midweek against AV Alta at home. Talk about coming out of the break, how you're thinking, how you guys are kind of preparing for what is going to turn into a pretty brutal stretch of games again before
yeah.
your mental health break during the World Cup.
Yeah, well, the good thing about the break is it's allowed some of the guys that took some knocks to get more time to come back because we're going to need everyone on the roster. Um, and we had some more training time. I think we're right about the point. And if I look at the intensity of the session today, where the guys are ready to start beating up on someone else, which is coming next Wednesday. But we have 2 more sessions, and then we have inter squad um, that we're excited about, which we've been able to try dabble with different formations and structures and putting different players in together to create relationships. So for me, it's been great because I'm learning more and more about the players, and it's very rare that you do that in the middle of a season where you're not having to take risks doing that with results involved. So this 2 weeks is huge for the group, in my opinion. We're not taking AV Alta lightly. Um, this is a team that has some some tools and a pretty athletic team with a similar style of play that I'm used to competing against. With their coach being a guy that I've known for many years in the LA market. And then obviously Lexington, we need to make sure that we're doing well in the Prinks and that we're showing that we are um, making a run for that. And then also, this game is a good game for us to have to get us as sharp as possible for Lexington at home. Um, I believe we do really well in these two games, and we're now right back to where we were at in the start of the season, where you mentioned we were flying with it, right? And I'm happy that from what I can feel that the fans are enjoying the team, that they seem to be entertained at the games, and no better way to give back to our community than to get some home wins.
Well, I will say something that stuck out to me, and Mika, I don't know if this sticks out to you as well, but something that had kind of crept in going into the season over the last probably 3 years had been maybe a bit of like apathy in terms of like how the fan base was approaching certain games where they were just like, it was like win or lose. It was kind of atmosphere was kind of the same. Like
Yeah.
obviously the hardcores are going crazy regardless,
Yeah.
but like the casual fan is maybe not as bought into what's going on the field. It does feel like and in these games and that the crowd has definitely like on all sides, like they're kicking every ball with the team. They're going for every
Yeah.
header. They're like really in it with you guys. Does it feel that way at home?
Yeah, I mean, I hear it, and I should be asking Mika. She's got her, you know, finger on the pulse. I'm so focused in between the lines that I hear, the fans are great and the eighth notch. And one thing that I took my first when I got announced, I met everyone from the eighth notch that were there, and I remember them saying like, "Can you make sure that the team just gives us some love after the game?" And that's something that I've always been used to doing with my teams. I mean, like at LAFC, everyone would come over and we thank the fans and do the whole dance and the chant and other teams. That was just a given. So for us to, it's really important that even when it's a tough one where guys are upset because we've taken a loss or a red card or even a draw, to go and make sure that we thank the fans for their support. And so I'm hoping that that gets the fans to feel like, hey, they actually care about us. They're coming around to thank us, and that relationship continues to grow. What helps that, Phil, is getting results and staying at the top of the standings and putting a good, attractive style of football on the field. And it could be just because people in the community are talking to me because I'm the head coach, but I feel like there's a pretty honest and blue collar community. So I don't think they would lie to me. They are enjoying the way the team's playing and they are feeling like we're competing. There's only been a few games where I felt like we could have done a better job competing, where we talked about, like, at the end of the day, what I said on the press conference about we're going to give an honest effort and work our hardest no matter what. And we hope that that will now lead into some good results. I've been happy for some of the players having scoring goals, having some success. Quite a few players of the week. You know,
Yeah.
we got to get back to that, and the only way to do that is to get some results.
The in terms of how you're viewing the rest of the season, long view, obviously it's a long old season all the way through October. Um, what does success look like for you? What are the goals that this team has set for itself, and where do you see this team if you can implement all the things that you're wanting to, and we're seeing the progression? What do you think is the limit for this team?
Yeah, for me, it's a special team. There's a lot of tools and a lot of weapons that we can hurt a lot of teams with. I think the culture and the continuity of the group and them believing throughout the entire season and through each game is extremely important. The confidence level of the players to implement those things. The management of a team going through the ebbs and flows of a season, regardless of how much talent you have, I believe is the most important. So that first and foremost is success. If we can stay confident and that the team sticks together to thick and thin to the end of the season, that will be success. Obviously, with that said, when you do that, results will come. And the team that ended in fourth, right, kind of a late push last season, I believe anything lower than that will be a disappointment for the group. And we got to strive to finish third, second, or first in the conference. Um, if for whatever reason that doesn't happen and we still are in the playoffs and make a good run and show that our team is progressing, and every time we discuss our developmental areas within the media or internally, that those things are getting fixed throughout the year. For me as a coach, success is to have we created an environment where the players on the field are confident and are understanding and able to create solutions on their own. And that for me is something that then I know, okay, we've done a good job evolving this team and developing the individuals that are within it. Because at the end of the day, we can do as much as we can in preparation and teach as many tactics and all the things. But when the whistle blows, they have to be able to make decisions together and create solutions together to help have success on the field. And that's my job and our staff's job to make sure that they're confident no matter what a team throws at us, that we're prepared.
To kind of round out this discussion, Junior, we reached out to some of our followers on social media, because I have the privilege of getting to ask you questions after games and press conferences, but
Yeah.
we've asked the fans kind of what they would ask you if they had a chance. So I have a couple of those if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm a little scared.
So the first one that we have, and you kind of touched on this because you said, we need our whole roster going forward, but at Cielo Libre on Twitter or X said, who are we not giving a chance on the field that should have one? I think you've probably played everyone, but do you have any thoughts on that,
Yeah,
on anyone who is not getting in that maybe should?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would have to believe that there's been quite a few players that have contributed. Um, you can tell them that that changes on a daily basis depending on how well they train. I don't,
Right.
I do believe that there's quite a few guys that have been in and out of injuries.
Mm,
Um, that, I know that there's a BTS evolving to where possibly we throw a two center forward system in there to get two guys in there that can score. But he's played games. He's been in tough situations. I think a lot of the guys that have been coming in off the bench, I've rotated as starters here and there. Um, I don't feel like, Jimmy came in and got injured right away. Um, I'm excited about Memo. No one's seen Memo this season. I would say Memo. And
yeah.
not because he hasn't had an opportunity because of my decisions, but he's just gotten cleared. So I think Memo's going to be a bright spot. There are some younger players. I started a 17-year-old right back to the start of the season, so I gave Ken an opportunity, but I do believe if he continues progressing, that we need to get him back and get some minutes to continue progressing his development. Um, yeah, it's a good question. I'll think about that tonight, and maybe we'll see some changes in the starting lineup against Avialto.
Bill, you want to
That-
take the next one?
Yeah, and I mean, I will say the Kenneth Tobin start to the season, probably one of the things that we had to eat crow on, like, publicly, because it was like, oh, 17-year-old play starting at right back, like, what a plan. And then he comes out and plays like an absolute blinder, and we were like,
Yeah.
okay, happy to be wrong.
I mean, I was
Yeah.
quite
Well, I wish he
literally
would've
not
scored
familiar
that
with this
goal.
game.
Yeah.
I wish he would have scored that goal though. He was
I
close.
know.
Then you'd have really had to eat it.
Yeah. No, and
We're
that's
happy
it,
to
yeah.
eat it, though, to be fair.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
here's the deal. Like everyone asks, like, why don't coaches play? Well, you got to give them a chance to prove themselves, right? And I've always been one to say if a player's ready or is showing signs that he's ready, then you got to put him on. Would I like to play some of the younger players more? Obviously, that is predicated on also the collective success of the group. The more success we have and the situations where you can make some of those changes, And again, we have 11 players on the field. I want to reiterate that is a focal point for the rest of the season. Then you can start sprinkling in some more young talent. But yeah, he's been doing really well. I was really excited to see him in the environment. And again, what's also special is that I had no prerequisites or no preconceived notions with anyone that when I came in. So everyone had a clean slate, and sometimes just a little confidence and a little attention could go a long way.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
he had played like 1 minute of senior football, I think, up until that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, we hadn't seen him, and obviously, yeah, it's been a very impressive start to things. Um, at Rusty Miller 95 asked, and this is one that you did sort of address, but I'd be interested for your further thoughts. But what does training look like when there are big gaps between games?
Yeah, we typically do a normal periodization plan where we start with the simpler, lower load session, more technical based and general principles earlier in the week. And then we progress into more of a tactical approach on how we want to play an inter squad. So we've done the first week we did a 4-day run up. So to answer that, that's 4 preparation days and then a game. And then this week we're doing a 3-day run up. So we deloaded last week because we had so many games and the guys needed to kind of deload a little bit from a physical standpoint. So we reduced the level of not the intensity, but duration and volume. We always want to train intense, but we just kind of made them shorter and less time. And this week we're loading them. So like today, like tomorrow, the guys are going to feel it. Like we got after it today, and we're loading them up again so that we're firing on all cylinders for next week. And the big load is obviously the intra squads. So we did one Saturday, and then we had a couple of days off, and now we started again, and we'll do another one Friday with Saturday off, and then we have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then into Avialta match at home.
On that note, Junior, I know that you talked in the past about how you like to cut up film and watch it, but are you a believer in going over video with the team as well, or you'd rather kind of work with the ball? Also, how do you integrate, if at all, analytics, which is so huge in the game nowadays?
Yeah, we use a stats bomb platform, so it gives us a lot of information from the opponents and our own personal play. There's enough data there that we can get some good information. We also use White Scout from a standpoint of video. We have a really good software with the Huddle Sports Code, multiple licenses. We do a reflection of almost every practice. Every day I do video almost. Some the days we meet every day as a team. I'll do a reflection of the day before, and we do a framing. So we do video of the days prior, and did we meet our principles? Did we meet our overall goal of the day? And if we did, we show the positives. If we didn't, we show possibly developmental areas.
Mm.
Sometimes we have to revisit the same topic because we didn't do a good enough job the day before. And then we'll frame the session. What I mean by framing is we'll show the activities that we're going to do. So now, not only are they getting a little bit of information from the day before, which I believe as human beings we need. Every day we need a little bit of understanding of how well we did the day before, right? And the reflection. And then show them, okay, this is the focal point. This is the area of the field we do. And what I've found by doing that is you get their minds thinking about the activities from when they leave the locker room throughout the warm up until they start those activities. And it also makes a cleaner and more efficient downtime between activities because they know what they're doing. And anytime a group knows that there's a plan and that there's a vision for the day and for the week, the buy-in starts to get more and more, especially when there's success with those activities.
Final question from the fans. This one comes from at Nico11 on Twitter. I kind of asked you about this one, but now that there's been
No.
some games, let's see, if anything's changed. Nick says, will the keeper continue to shift every 2 games, or will a number one emerge?
Yeah, that's a good question. For me, I didn't want to make a decision on that until I got to know both of the keepers very well. First is character wise, and two in performance. And yeah, I want to have to make a decision and have some continuity on a number one for sure. That's a important piece. But what I didn't want to do is come in and make a decision right away
Right.
without giving the players time to prove themselves. So there will be a decision soon on that aspect because it's important that sometimes it's not always the case depending on the team. Like you look at a lot of the European teams, you get one starting keeper, but then you're in so many cup games that the amount of games that they actually get are similar as far as how many they play.
Sure.
But for me, in the case of Seba and Romero, I wanted to make sure that I gave them enough time to have games and see how the relationships and how they were performing with the team. Um, and yeah, I have a good feeling and with Ivan and our goalkeeper coach, Ivan, and the rest of the staff that there will be a time where we're going to need to name a number one, and then if I give that goalkeeper a good stretch of games to prove themselves as a number one, and then possibly if there's a change that needs to be made, that we have another number two that's firing to push to also get games. That's a typical setup. That is something unique that, to be honest with you, I don't think I've gone this long without solidifying a number one.
Mm. Got it.
Is there any concern at all with the battle of hair between Christo and Abraham? And is there any argument in the in the locker room over who's got the better locks?
No, as soon as Cristo signed, I talked to Brian, our kit man, and said that we need to double stock the conditioner.
We've never seen the two of them in the same room, so I'll be interested to see if they take the pitch together. We can
Yeah.
confirm they're not the same person.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, Junior, I do want to say just thanks for spending so much time with us and for
Yeah.
being so forthcoming with all your answers and everything. I guess by way of closing, what would be your one message to the fans of El Paso Locomotive as we head into the the meat of the 2026 season?
Yeah, I would say we're extremely excited to make them proud. And we want to make sure that our home field's a fortress. And if we want more home results, we need to start packing out the stadium. Get friends, family. I mean, we got to find a way to get more people in there so that the guys thrive on that, and so that we are even in a position where the confidence is flowing even more for the team to succeed. Because without them, it's it's an extra player on the field, right? With them and with their support, and we appreciate them. We want to make sure that we continue to get results and play in a way that we make the fans of the locals proud and the city proud of our. Hopefully, at the end of the year, we're celebrating something that maybe the club has never done before. That would be a beautiful thing that we can bring to the city.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Junior, again. And it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And hopefully it won't be the last time.
Yeah.
But we'll, best of luck and enjoy this little break. I'm sure it's been nice having a little mental break in between games, but excited to see you guys back out against AV Alta.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Phil. Mika, thanks for having me. And anytime you guys want to chat, I'm here.
Absolutely. Cheers,
Awesome.
Junior. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Junior.